that happens a lot, especially with us with demos, is like a song can have so many cool parts that are like 10 out of 10, but then if you've got a song that has like intro, verse, pre-chorus that are all 10 out of 10, and then the chorus is like a 6, it's not going to be a good song. The chorus has to be a 10. Like, it's got to be a good chorus, otherwise it's not going to be a good song.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to The Record Process. This week, we sit down with Australian singer and radio personality Emmy Mack to dive deep into her band RedHooks' 2023 debut LP, Postcards from a Living Hell. Emmy discusses the surprising impact that COVID had on the band, and she shares what it was like meeting producer Stevie, who would go on to become one of the biggest collaborative forces in the band's trajectory. She reveals how the band navigated the trials and tribulations of being an independent band, and shares how allowing herself to be truly open and honest in her lyrical content has empowered her to work through past traumas and connect with her audience on a much deeper level. You'll hear how Emmy and the band had courage to take controversial song ideas they were working on, break them down, and be willing to build them back better than they were before. And finally, you'll hear how their skills as individuals and their constant seeking of advice and feedback has led to their continued success. So don't go anywhere. The story of RedHooks' debut LP is coming right up. So let's say you've just finished the latest round of mix revisions, or the last few tracks on a production you've been working on, but you want instant feedback before you go and ship them out. That's where Audio Movers steps in. Their revolutionary technology allows you to stream high-quality audio in real time, making remote collaboration a breeze. And with Audio Movers Listen To plugin, there's no need for complicated setups or endless file sharing. Simply stream your audio directly from your favorite DAW to anyone, anywhere in the world in real time. And now with their newest plugin, they've made it possible to apply binaural rendering to Dolby Atmos mixes, allowing you to monitor how the spatial audio will sound on Apple Music. Through innovations like this, Audio Movers is leading a revolution in web-based audio transmission and reimagining the way musicians, podcasters, and educators engage with the world around them. So check them out at audiomovers.com and start your free trial today. One of the toughest hurdles for musicians and producers to overcome is recognizing when it's time to let your music go. So stop letting your music sit there on a hard drive waiting for the perfect label scenario to show up. Let DistroKid help you start reaching the fans you deserve right now. There's a reason why DistroKid is the go-to platform for independent musicians across all genres, and it's because they offer seamless and affordable solutions to distribute your music worldwide. Get your tracks on all the most popular streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and so many more in just a few steps. Time is often money, and DistroKid understands that. So they've eliminated long wait times for processing your music in the system. And in fact, they can get your music live in as little as 24 to 48 hours now. The simplicity of the platform and features like automatic revenue splits and YouTube content IDs make distributing your music and collecting payments incredibly simple. DistroKid does not take a percentage of your royalties, and for one low annual fee, you keep 100% of what you own. It's straightforward, transparent, and affordable. So follow the link in our show notes to get 30% off your new DistroKid membership and start letting your music work for you. If you're a solo musician, a singer, a songwriter, or part of a band, you know that the journey does not end once you have that finished master in hand. Building a lasting career around your music requires a lot of additional activities to do things like develop, promote, and ultimately monetize your creative vision. And for those of us that aren't quite doing Taylor Swift level numbers yet, it helps to have a merchandising partner that can meet you where you're at right now. And SmartPunk MFG is a perfect solution for any and all merch manufacturing needs your band might have. From the first note to the final stitch, they have it all covered with whatever you might need. They do screen printing, they do embroidery, stickers, vinyl and CD production, posters, and pretty much everything else under the sun. They are an incredibly comprehensive online merch solution offering reasonable prices and feasible quantities for bands of all sizes. So go check out some samples of what they can do at smartpunkmfg.com. And when you're ready, just shoot them an email at info@smartpunkmfg.com and mention the record process to get 10% off your first order. So remember, that's Smart Punk MFG, and it's where creativity meets manufacturing excellence. Emmy Mack from the band RedHook. You are joining us from way down under, and it's late at night there and early in the morning here for Tom and I. But we are very much in good spirits and ready to talk to you about Postcards from a Living Hell, which is, as you put it a few moments ago, it runs the spectrum. There's a lot happening on this record in a very cool way, and we want to dive way deep inside of how it all came to be. But first, I would love if you could take a few moments for maybe the non-Australian listeners that may not be as familiar with the origin of RedHook. Fill them all in on how this project and the band came to be.
Well, thank you so much for having me. G'day, mates. Emmy from RedHook here. So RedHook started a couple of years ago in 2018. It kind of formed strangely from the ashes of this old kind of, don't laugh, 80s-inspired hair metal band that I've been in since high school. But, and yeah, like a lot of bands, we were just trying to make things work for like ages and felt like we were hitting our heads against a brick wall. We went through so many members, just couldn't find like the right lineup. And then I met a fellow on the internet named Craig Wilkinson, who is my guitarist and sometimes producer in RedHook. And like we just started the band ourselves. It just literally started just the two of us, no one else, no team, no other bandmates. We were like, if we get shows, we'll just get our mates to play. And it just, and in the few short years since, it's just kind of just grown very rapidly and quickly, and it's been a wild ride, but I've been enjoying every second.
Oh, I love that. So talk to me about the internet band meet cute, so to speak, of you and Craig, because this is obviously the era and climate that we live in. A lot of things are happening remotely, obviously, some of which that we talk about on this show here, but not all of them to such decent rapid success, right? So it's like you guys clearly kind of clicked, and the last 5 years, have gained a lot of momentum, right? What was it that drew y'all to each other? Was there like did you respond to, I don't even know what it would be down there, a Craigslist ad like a guitarist wanted, or like, I'm curious because it seems like you found someone that not only was a guitarist, but, had some recording chops, and who also we are missing dearly, Craig, right now. Yeah, I'm going to find you and you're going to come on for a Gear Candy segment, whether you like it or not, at some point. But yeah, so what was it that drew you? Was it just like the common like genre interests? Or
I'm kind of glad he's not here for me to tell this story.
Oh, but, brilliant.
We originally, I think we like poached him, like some other band had posted in like a pop punk like community Facebook group, like wanting a guitarist, and he'd responded. So we're like, ooh, like this guy looks like he suits the part. And like we like stalked a couple of his videos, and then he came and tried out, like auditioned, and he did not get in. That like I started the band with a bunch of other musicians from my old band, and so Craig will never let me live this down. He did not make the cut. He did not get into the band at first.
Oh my!
What's he try out with?
Yeah, what was the song? What did you make him play?
They were like our really terrible, like older songs that have never seen the light of day and will hopefully never see the light of day.
Okay, so it definitely wasn't the material that was the problem, is what we're saying. Okay, yeah.
No, the material was great, man.
You're just not making it sing. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, sorry, Craig. But look, the important thing is I saw the error of my ways, and like, however, I can't even remember how long it was later. It was like 8 months later or something. Hit him up again, and luckily he wasn't like, fuck you, and gave us another
He just said all of that under his breath. That's great.
Yeah, to this day.
Man, I love that. Well, I am glad that we asked. Yeah, it's not always like hook, line, and sinker, like reeling them in on the first try, right?
Dad!
It seemed like
Tom loves me right now.
I got you. It seems like this was a red hot
Oh
You
no!
guys,
Honestly,
let's
he couldn't even finish it himself.
I could do it to us.
What's amazing is Tom gets the sad trombone now instead of me. So thank you. She did it. We don't even need the sound effect now.
Yeah.
No, but I love that because that's sometimes interesting. Is like the origin story of some bands. I think is people just assume it's like, yeah, I don't know, we all played together in high school, which is interestingly part of like my band experience. But there were definitely bands before then, and plenty that aren't. But I think that's very interesting. Is it's not always a perfect fit right off the jump.
It's not, and then from there, it kind of like, this is. I mean, I was going to say this is a really cheesy metaphor, but after what you guys just said, I think the bar is already quite low.
It's a very safe space right now. I mean, yeah, hit it.
But I kind of feel like it's a very kind of Wizard of Oz tale, the way that like the rest of us came together, because it started off with like me, and then Craig came along, and then it's like we're on this yellow brick quest, and then we found Alex, and then now finally we have Ned, and it's the four of us just following the old yellow brick road.
Just following the old yellow brick road. You guys are based in Sydney, right?
We are, yes.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. What a lovely picture you're painting. Just a yellow brick road right down off along the sea somewhere. Bondi. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so you eventually saw the error of your ways and said, Craig, listen, the other guy that we hired has a previous commitment, so you're in. And so then from there, right? So a lot happened. You started obviously making music. Talk to me a little bit about where the songwriting and stuff started taking off with there, because obviously, 5 years later we get to the debut LP from y'all, but there was a lot of stuff in the process there.
Yeah, totally. Well, so when I first hooked up with Craig for RedHook, I'd already written a couple of our earlier singles, Minute on Fire and Paralyzed, just with Stevie, who's like one of my best friends in the whole world and also like one of the most amazing rock producers in the whole world, not biased. And they were like sitting in my Dropbox for like at least a year, maybe two, before we finally released it. And it was just like this process of just not finding the right members and people that I just wanted a team of people that were like so aligned and just couldn't find them. And so in the end, it was just me and Craig, and we were just like, fuck it, let's just release these songs and see how we go. If we get shows, we'll just get mates to come in and fill in and play them with us. Yeah. And it just like I think it was like literally from the first single that we dropped, it just something like, I don't know if we were lucky or if it was just the right thing at the right time, but it was just something magic happened, and it just started like this. It was like this big snowball effect. Like one of the promoters from Download UK slid into our DMs, I think just after we dropped our second single, Turn Up the Stereotype.
Ooh.
And he was like, yo, like, I want you guys to come play this festival. And we were like, this is a fucking troll, eh? Like, there's no way. And then we got on the phone with him.
We're getting catfished, like, yeah, so hard. I was like, this DM slide is way too not creepy, and this is, yeah.
Nowhere near enough dick pics.
Right. Oh man, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it already worked. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Did you end up playing the show?
We did. We played Download in 2019 when we were still very, very much a baby band, and we probably still kind of sucked. But yeah, it was incredible. And I feel like it was just like this domino effect, because so they booked us to play Download, but then also kind of match made us with our current manager in Australia. It was just amazing, like having that experience, because you meet a lot of sharks in the music industry, especially when you're like a little band. So to meet someone who's actually in a position of like influence and who really cared and believed in the band enough to be like, hey, you should talk to this guy about management and come play my festival on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And things, obviously like we were on like this pretty rapid trajectory until COVID hit, like everyone else. And that sort of slowed things down a little bit, but it's been wild.
Wow. You just unpacked a lot. So now let's do a little unpacking of all of that. For anybody that might not know, Download, that's a big deal. That's a big time rock festival.
Big boy festival.
Right. Massive. Even so, like people, there's probably equivalents in the US, but like, I mean, it's even a larger festival than like Riot Fest or a lot of stuff that we've done that's like, has a name and is really close to, it's like a massive rock festival. So that you guys being from a different continent and still, getting the look straight from the promoter, not anybody else, without any other team members, which is really astounding. And so that's the first thing that kind of jumps out at me is I think a lot of bands, and you guys having been an independent band, which is, I think, another really interesting part of your story, and really important to tug on a little bit. I think a lot of bands assume that things have to work in like the old school order of operations, right? And a lot of bands are like, it's first a manager, and then it's, a booking agent, and then it's a label, and then it's, and everything just at these nice little checkpoints, even. Yeah. Right. It's like, and especially nowadays, the order of operations is thrown upside down.
It's the wild fucking West now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And so I love that you guys are like, we didn't have an agent. We didn't have a manager. The guy that books one of the biggest UK rock fests just heard the band and liked it. And which is really, and it's not the first time that I've heard really interesting things. Even, bands that I've worked with that put up like a demo on SoundCloud and literally before there's any managers or like have someone straight from major labels that just found it for some reason. You know what I mean? That shit does happen, even though it seems like very like Willy Wonka golden ticket shit.
100%. Hence why we thought it was a catfish.
Right, exactly. and you should have been there, entering into any of that with a certain degree of skepticism, I think is very healthy, especially for independent bands, right? Because usually, yes, if it sounds too good to be true, there's a good chance it is, right? But there's ways of vetting it and using your intuition. And if you're unsure, go find somebody that might help you get a better read on what to look for, right? You did, and clearly you're like, nope, this is definitely the guy. That's the guy.
We did some background checks.
Yeah, right. You had your people look into his people. But I love that part of this story, right? Because in and of itself is maybe an unlikely place to get some initial feedback on those songs that you had for a little bit, right? And I think to me, like, and when I tell a lot of younger bands, is feedback is the most important thing that you can get. Go find as much of it as you can, as quick as you can, because that helps you refine what you're doing. And that's the path. That's really all that matters, even though there's a lot of other, like, people want to say it's like, this is the key to unlocking stuff. You need a manager, you need a label, yada, yada. It's like, no, you just need to figure out what your sound and what your music is and what about it works and connects.
100%. It's like that if you build it, they will come sort of thing. It's like, if instead of like knocking on their doors, they'll start knocking on your doors, because what you're doing is just speaks for itself.
Yeah. And there is a lot of noise out there, right? And while I do love that movie, sometimes that mindset, I think bands lean into it a little too much, and they're just like, all I got to do is get it on Spotify and people will find it. It's like, it doesn't work that quick always, but like the more you can get you can start feeling a temperature, right? And sometimes that'll come from some unlikely places. It's not always like the head of a major UK rock festival, but sometimes it might be other people whose opinion you kind of trust and value. And you're like, oh, this is connecting. Okay, great. Then let's start pouring gasoline on the fire. Let's start investing a little bit more, because we feel a little bit, even more about it, like there's a moment and something's happening. So that all is incredible. I want to go back even before that, before we continue jumping ahead, and say, in terms of the pattern that we're starting to see with things kind of coming in an atypical order, you actually had some songs before you had the band, the full band and the lineup, which is really interesting too. Not to mention, you mentioned working with Stevie on those songs. Stevie Knight, who, as we mentioned, we'll link to his stuff, and I'm sure we'll speak to him at some point, but he's a true, I don't want to say diamond in the rough, because Australia, aside from like the middle of the country, not necessarily rough, he's had a wonderful career making some really incredible records in the scene, and especially, for a lot of bands down there in Australia.
He's disgustingly talented.
Also talk to us, did you meet him with your previous band, or where was that connection? Because sometimes I think a lot of people are like, you get the band, and then the band gets in a room, writes a bunch of songs, and then you try and find, enough person, people to introduce you to that, a local producer. And then that local producer might, bring in somebody else, or you might catch the attention of like a big name producer or whatever. But that's not necessarily what happened here either. So how'd you know Stevie? Because I think that's also really interesting.
I met him at the studio that my old band used to record at. And then I started working with him on like some of my old band's like very 80s metal demos, which were very shit. And Stevie was just like, he's such a straight talk. He was like, yo, look, this shit you're doing, it's not great.
It's bad.
The hard word to me was like, look, let's try something else. And like we'd recorded this cover of Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine just for like shits and giggles because I just really wanted to. And he was like, why don't we write some more shit like this or like in this kind of genre? And I was like, oh yeah, like that'd be pretty fun. And then we just started, like, we just got in the kitchen and started cooking, and we wrote Minute on Fire and Paralyzed, which ended up being RedHooks' first and third singles. And yeah, I was stoked on them, but I was like, I can't release these when I don't have a band. And so they were sitting in my Dropbox folder for like a year, maybe two. Before,
I love that. Just waiting for somebody that also shared that like Rage Against the Machine-esque lust for that kind of like riff-based kind of like rock style stuff. Wow. Tom, people shit all over covers nowadays. And you know what? I do have a bone to pick. I really like there's a podcast, as a quick side note, that I love called The Accidental Creative. And his tagline is cover bands don't change the world. Like find your, only unique voice. And I'm like, but also sometimes a cover can help you figure out what band you're meant to be in.
100%. And for me, I was just like, oh, this like rapping is like really fun. Hey, I don't have to worry about pitching the notes right. I should do more of it.
Which you can do as well, but like, but yeah, it's like that. So, and it takes a cover like that to push you into a bit of a different lane to explore something like that, which is what I love about them sometimes when you take them and own them and you're like, oh my God.
And like depacking what the cover means to you and like depacking on like what that style means to you is always really informative. So like, I guess like out of what was the element from Guerrilla Radio that made its way to the first and third single? Or are you like, oh, dude, I totally ripped off of like
I don't think I really ripped off anything specifically, although I think in Minute on Fire, I was trying really hard to be Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park.
Hell yeah.
I think that's the vibe that I was definitely trying to rip off.
Amazing. I think I misspoke in saying like ripped, but like inspired, and like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like it's getting you on the path to like be more creative.
Totally.
And like knowing yourself.
And I back that with covers. Like, you got to, it takes you out of your comfort zone of what you're used to and discover new things about yourself and what's fun and what inspires you. And
right. It's not, I'm a firm believer. It's like, it's not all bad and it doesn't have to be all cringy. And it's not just bands trying to like vapidly chase streams or virality, right? It's like, it can be good, and being in a band and making music is, believe it or not, supposed to be fun and enjoyable. And if you're enjoying the process of doing that and making something your own, I kind of love that. And I think people sometimes miss the authenticity in that for bands where they're just like, how dare you judge me? Like, I fucking love this song. And I want you to know how much I love this song. Right. So I do appreciate that. And Rage Against the Machine, obviously, you can't go wrong with that. We love that. So
the only thing is no one can do it better than them. That's
right. Exactly. So it's like, you got to go in there knowing you're only, if anything, ever going to be second best. Right. I love that. It's still, a band like that has the power to inspire so many and touch so many different, like, large corners of rock and even pop music that I think it's incredible where the places that you'd probably hear, that band's influence pop up these days. But so that gets us, really into the weeds, right? So, and then you hit the pandemic roadblock, right? Which we're going to skip over for all intents and purposes, right? Because we all lived it. We lived it, right? It was a reality. And I'm sure, in some ways you had time where you weren't playing shows, right? So where did you go next when you realized you were going to have that time and you had put out some singles and started to have that feedback and started to see the vision and the lane that the band wanted to live in, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess we didn't want to, I mean, it was like with everyone, it was a massive kick to the dick, and I was terrified that it would that was kind of it when COVID hit, because we were on this massive upward trajectory. But but of course we're independent. We didn't have a label. We didn't have like all the sort of, the muscle and the clout backing us. So, and the music industry is, once you lose the momentum, it can be so hard to get it back. So I was just like, fuck, I think we're fucked. But we used the time to finish our debut EP, Bad Decisions, and release that. And then I think we also dropped another song that was like probably the most like pop punk song, Sentimental Surgery, that was inspired by all the lockdown bullshit. And so we just kept releasing music, use the time to double down on our songwriting. And because we'd been like sort of, breadcrumb dropping single and trying to build that way on Spotify and streaming. And people have just been like wanting us to do an EP. So we're like, might as well, nothing else to do.
Right. I love that. And so that was the next EP. When did that EP come out then? Like, or was it fully released because you were kind of waterfalling singles a little bit?
Yeah, there were 6 songs and 3 of them were singles. And that came out in 2021.
So then where did the songs, were you writing, did you have a large group of songs at that point and you picked those for that release? Or is it much more linear in we're writing 6 songs, they're great, we're refining them, putting them out, and then write more? How does that work?
What we try and do is we like write like a fuckload of like 1-minute demos. When we write a song, it'll only be like the basic structure, like intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, as an example, because I feel like once you've got up until the chorus, you kind of know if the song's going to be any good or not. And then we do as many of those as we can, and then we choose the ones that we think have the most potential when it comes time to like go into the studio with Stevie and flesh them out into like full-blown songs.
Oh, awesome. I love that, because I think a lot of now this is coming from like a guitar player's perspective, but I feel like as an instrumentalist in the band, a lot of and even actually funny enough, like working inside a very much like hands-on, like get in the room and feel how the song feels. A lot of times that's tends to be where you gravitate towards, because you're like, well, I don't want to just like completely round out all the corners and all the edges if I'm going to walk in and like half the band's going to be like, this is in no way something that I'm into. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that can sometimes come out of it. And that's interesting too, because it allows you to get a lot of almost like snapshots of different identities for songs.
Totally. And like when you're doing a body of work, like an EP or an album, sometimes you're kind of like, okay, all right, I feel like we need another heavier song. It's like, this song's good, but we've got enough of songs like that on the album. We need to like shake things up. It needs like a heavier song, or it needs like an emotional ballad or something like that. Like, just to get the variety.
Something reminiscent of that 80s hair metal. Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying.
I totally, like a Winger ballad. Yeah, we need to get Whitesnake on this. Yes.
Get Kip Winger on the blower, man.
So before you go into the studio, you're having this like a song journey for the album. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. Like we do put like a lot of stock in what Stevie thinks as well. So we'll like sort of usually when we go in for pre-production, we'll just show him like all of the demos, and he'll be like, yeah, this is cool. I like this fucking rules. Nah, this is shit. We're not gonna work on this one. Like he's very upfront about what he thinks is good or not.
If you're listening to this show, I'm guessing there's a good chance that you're the type of person that appreciates the time and effort that goes into something meaningful, something lasting, and something that tells the world exactly who you are. Well, Brett and Dave, the co-founders of our sponsor, Oxford Pennant, share that very same appreciation. They've made it easier than ever to elevate any space in your life and express your style with their meticulously crafted American-made pennants. From classic designs to customized creations, each piece is a work of art. It's quality you can feel and a statement that truly lasts a lifetime. I recently had the pleasure of touring their Buffalo-based shop where they tirelessly make each piece by hand. And honestly, their process really is an inspiring fusion of passion and precision. So go make your mark, celebrate your story, and discover the epitome of timeless craftsmanship and personalized expression by visiting oxfordpennant.com today. Let's talk about that, like that gut check moment too, because this is always like a fun one, and sometimes not so fun. But this is the perfect example of like that crucial like feedback moment where you have a bunch of songs, right? They're all swimming around, and different people might even gravitate and already kind of be holding, some closer than others. But then you have someone like Stevie, where I think this is where a producer and acting as that, like maybe even a tiebreaker in some ways, but also just like an honest, fresh judge of character that comes in without bias. Talk to me about what you remember. Were there any hot takes on any ideas, good or bad? Because I kind of love that. And now how that's kind of like the moment where you start to like make those like decisions that are going to get flushed out.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one that like comes to mind most of all is our song Imposter, which ended up being our collab with yours truly on the record. That was a song that like, it was an instrumental. I think it had been kicking around from like the EP sessions, but there was just something about it. And I was like, and Craig and I couldn't write a chorus. So we like shelved it, forgot about it. But I was like, no, I need like this song. Like we need to work on this song. We need to work on this song. And then we sat down with it, like with Stevie, because I forced them to. I was like, no, trust me, like this song, like we have to. And we sat there and it was like beating our heads against a brick wall for ages, just like with the, like fucking with the arrangement. And so in the end, Stevie and I just sat down with an acoustic guitar. We like put everything else aside and we're like, okay, we're going to write a chorus. And we just changed up the chords, just wrote a completely different chorus, and then came back, recorded the chorus, and then started cherry picking bits of the old song to kind of Frankenstein like into with this new chorus. And it worked. It just came together like so beautifully and so well. It was the most frustrating song on the album to write, but it had one of the biggest payoffs because it's one of my favorite songs off the record.
Oh, that's awesome. So you had to go completely outside of what you had there instrumentally, and you had to break it all down and say, fuck that. It's distracting. And which can be really tough. Cause I mean, what you're kind of describing is a methodology for kind of trying to get outside of that demo-itis. Cause you've been there listening, and probably you as a vocalist, I'd imagine, trying to write to that instrumental, and you get stuck in a lane, right? Cause you're just like, I don't know where to go melodically. Like the rhythm's fucking me up.
I've tried everything.
Right. But if you take a bunch of that away and you're maybe just left with a key or like a general chord progression, that it's a lot more malleable and modular, right? So that sounds like that's kind of the process there.
Totally. Just taking it back to like square one, to basics.
Yeah.
And then, because I think like that happens a lot, especially with us with demos, is like a song can have so many cool parts that are like 10 out of 10. But then if you've got a song that has like intro, verse, pre-chorus that are all 10 out of 10, and then the chorus is like a 6, it's not going to be a good song. The chorus has to be a 10. Like it's got to be a good chorus. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good song.
Or the unlikely story which is not so unlikely, where you just need somebody in maybe Stevie's position or an outside ear to be like, well, the verse is actually just your chorus, you idiot, and then you're like, oh, wow.
It was that way the whole time.
Oh my God. It's just the nomenclature. That was the only thing I was getting wrong. I assigned it a V in my notebook instead of a C. Damn it. Yes, sometimes, unfortunately, we don't always want to admit it, but it can be that simple if you let it, or you have somebody that can help it be that.
We've been talking a lot about the instrumentals for these songs, like during the during this like pre-production process. Like, did you have ideas lyrically of where you wanted to take them before the instrumentals, or like how's that process work with you?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, for me, it's kind of like a game of I'll have all these ideas for songs, like, and like concepts and lyrics, and then it's like sometimes I'll have it just write a top line, and then we'll write the song around the top line. That's how Bad Decisions came about, was just this random top line that I wrote. But then, yeah, otherwise, like, I'll just have these concepts kicking around, and then Craig will send me instrumentals, and then it's weird. It's like sometimes, like, I'll just hear one and be like, Join, that's that song. That's what that song's about. Like, that happened with Jabberwocky, our song Jabberwocky. I'd been wanting to write a song, like, I'd been wanting to write that song, and then, but I didn't really, I had all these like random lyrics, but I didn't have like a top line or anything. And then Craig woke up at 3 a.m. one night with like this instrumental in his head, and he just tracked it and then sent it to me. I woke up to it the next morning, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is that song. Like, and the lyrics just came, the melody came, everything just like, it was, yeah, one of those weird, trippy, surreal moments where everything isn't hard and it almost just kind of like flows out of your brain without you even thinking.
That's amazing. Was that you when you get those instrumentals from Craig in that moment? Is it just you by yourself at like house, like in front of it, like home studio style, like workshopping stuff, or how does that?
I'm a bit of a vagrant. I'm always like, I live my life out of a suitcase, and I'm always so I'm usually probably in transit. I'm probably on a train or a bus somewhere, going somewhere.
Just weird, like manically humming into a phone, or
yeah. Although
okay.
I think when I got the Jabberwocky instrumental, I remember where I was. I was in the bath. I think I was doing like, I was in like lockdown for like 2 weeks because we'd been exposed to like I know one of those, what were they called again? Like the exposure sites or whatever. It
Right.
was fun.
Yes. One of those fun little
One of those
chestnuts
things.
where, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's never talk about that again. Anyway, but yeah, I was just in the bath, and then he sent me. I just listened to this recording and was just like, that's it. That's the song.
What was it that hit you about it? And from a lyrical perspective, maybe even talk about Jabberwocky too, because that's thematically there's some heavy topics on the record too, right? That are very personal. So I'm curious how you know that instrumental is the vehicle to carry that idea in that moment.
I knew that it had to make me feel something, and that instrumental just immediately made me feel something. It was just like the chord progression, just the whole vibe of Craig's, and it was a very simple arrangement, but it captured me, and like it just hit me in the feels. So I think that's usually a pretty good litmus test, is if, you know, a song without any lyrics can make you feel something, then it's only going to get more powerful if you add lyrics that mean something. And so and especially because like when I started top lining and sort of putting some of these lyrics to it, it just came so easily and it felt so natural. I think that's also like a pretty good sign when you're a songwriter, if things just are coming to you that easily and you feel good about the ideas. But for those who don't know, so Jabberwocky is like, I feel like it's probably the fucking most important thing I've ever done in my life, was release that song. It was, it's about sexual assault trauma, a really fucked up thing that happened to me when I was on RedHooks' first tour, which was when we did Download. But it was after that. We were on tour in Europe, and I was sexually assaulted one night in Germany, and it's the first time anything like that had ever happened to me. And it's kind of about me dealing with that, and like how it sort of just trauma in general, and the way it kind of stalks us all like a monster, and how I kind of dealt with it by pretending it didn't exist. And that's how I was able to get through the rest of that tour without falling to pieces, was just by telling myself it was a dream and like pushing it away and pushing it down. And then, you know, because I did that for 2 weeks on tour, by the time I got home, it was kind of like become normal just to like deny that it happened and just like it was a dream. So it took me a long time to really unpack that. And Jabberwocky, writing that song, really helps me do that. And it's resonated a lot with so many people, which is like means more to me than anything in the whole world. So that's how that song came about.
Incredible. And I mean, and what's interesting too is, you know, as you said, that from a time and place standpoint I find it interesting that you ended up there maybe because of Download, and that stuck with you, and that experience and processing that, which by the way, I commend you for as well. It's like, that can't be an easy thing to decide, you know, that this is something that you're, you know, ready to put out there, even if it's kind of circling there in the back. So I think as a lyricist and as a songwriter, and mostly, I mean, a storyteller, you know what I mean? That's kind of what we're all doing. And so it's interesting that you have those things. And I think a lot of times, a lot of writers maybe have like they know that there's stories there, but they're just kind of sifting through the ones that are like, am I comfortable enough to tell this? Am I too afraid of the consequences or the fallout of what this story, and be honest, but don't be too honest, right?
Yeah, I'm always too honest.
I think that's a really important thing, because I think a lot of, you know, talking about the pressure that can come from making art or just being any sort of public figure or putting anything out into the world instead of, you know, hiding behind some sort of anonymity. I think it can be really difficult, I'd imagine, but you probably had, you know, and sharing any of those experiences is unbelievable.
Thank you so much. And I was, yeah, look, I won't lie. I was fucking terrified. Like I was shit scared to release this song because, you know, there's so many different things go through your head. You're like, oh, people are going to judge me. I mean, I prided myself so much on being like an absolute like maniac, you know, fucking like kick ass, like bringing that vibe on stage. And so I felt like being vulnerable in a way, like I was like, whoa, is that going to like undermine like, I don't know. There's all these weird things that go through your head, but I mean, and we played it live for our fans in Australia on our headline tour last year before we released it. And I was so scared before we went on to play it that I almost cut it from the set. And I'm so, so glad I didn't. And everyone convinced me to still do it because it was like one of the most incredible experiences of my life, like telling that story for the first time and performing it live, and how many people were like crying, and just like how many people came up to me after the show being like, this is the first song, they're like, you know, this happened to me, I relate to this so much. And like, and as soon as that happened, I wasn't scared to release it anymore.
Yeah, you had the like the collective feels from your fan base to acknowledge that, yeah, what you felt and what you're feeling is super valid, and we support you. So that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Like the support and the response and how many people it's resonated with has been amazing. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not like, it's not like it was worth it happening. You know what I mean? But it was. It's really it's the beautiful thing about being a songwriter and having music as a platform to express yourself is that you can take these really traumatic, horrible experiences and create something positive that helps people and helps them deal with and feel less alone with whatever they're going through. And I think it's really beautiful. And it's one of the things I love most about what I do.
I think that's in such a beautiful way, right in line with this interesting kind of like out of order, like unconventional thing where it's like this song and you needed, you know, your fans, you know, and people that were there were actually, you know, helped empower you to make it possible, to give you the, you know, the courage and reassurance, which is interesting because we talked about feedback.
It's almost like that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with like with like all the like strings and like the nails going everywhere.
Yeah. And there were a lot of, you know, and in that case, it was like there's a ton of different thoughts probably racing around your mind, knowing that story is there, knowing that song is there, but then playing it live beforehand, which is also something that I think used to happen a lot more pre-internet, right? Because who cares, right? You know, hey, we're going to test this new one out. What do you think, right? But I love that bands that you see bands now doing that as well. And that was such an important part of this song, and the song that's such a staple on this album too. And yeah, it's like, I almost wonder, it's like without you guys being able to play that and have that experience playing it live, it might not have ended up there, right? There's a reality of who knows.
I could have pussied out hard. It could have happened.
Emmy, I love that because it goes to show, and it is where art and music in general, it's not just a one-way street. You're not just throwing things out there. It's about the interactive nature of it, and it's about the cycle, and it's about the impact and the reaction, right? Music is about eliciting a reaction, and I think this one is the perfect test too. It's like that was a reaction that helped this then move forward and become something even bigger, you know, for you as a band, as a songwriter, but also for so many other people that now, you know, get their similar, you know, courage and experience from listening to it. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
That's okay. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, really, really powerful stuff and amazing. And just another awesome reminder that things don't always happen in the conventional order of we're going to write a song and then it goes on the album. And then that's the first time people hear it. And then that's the, you know, pass or fail, good, bad, whatever test. It's like sometimes it can move in different cycles. And I love that about this one.
Emmy, I don't know how we transition out from that story. That's such a heavy story. But so like, let's like jump forward to like, y'all have the songs, y'all tracked them, they passed the gut check. Where does like being an independent artist, I know can be very daunting. You don't have that team that we were talking about, but what does that process look like for y'all on this release specifically?
First of all, I was shitting myself because everybody wanted to announce the album and set pre-orders live before we had finished recording the album, because we were like, yeah. And every single person in the industry that I told about this had that exact same reaction, just like, what the fuck, are you crazy? And I was like, yeah, it's fucking crazy. I was really stressed, especially because of like all the vinyl like production issues and like shipping issues that were happening around COVID. Like I heard so many horror stories. I was like, oh my God, like I just don't want to screw our fans over. But we somehow managed to pull it off. Which I don't know. I feel like we're always just like go. Like we're always racing the clock to try and do things as fast as we can. I'm not sure why, but that just seems to be the way things work out. But yeah, so we didn't, like, the album came in like dribs and drabs. Like we were sort of just stealing little windows of time between tour dates that we could to like write, to record. Like Low Budget Horror, like the first song, like it's on there, but I don't think we'd written any of the other songs when that song came out. So it was just it came together like over time. And then we in terms of like being independent and releasing it, I mean, we have great publicists here in Australia. We engaged some publicists in the US for the first time, and also like we have people in the UK that we hired to do our PR there. But that's pretty much it. Like just the fans, just like we were just lucky enough to have like such a dedicated fan base, especially here in Australia, that people cared about it and they bought it. And I think that was probably the beauty of waiting so long to release it as well. Like I got a lot of people, have asked in like interviews and stuff, like, you guys, waited a while to like release your debut album. But it's like, no, I think we released it at the right time, because I think a lot of artists make the mistake of releasing an album before they have a fan base who gives a fuck that they're releasing an album. And we made ours wait until they were just like, for fuck's sake, why do you give us the album?
So they were banging down the door. Yeah.
Every single post we do on social media, album one. So like, fine guys, we'll give you an album.
Yeah. Oh man. So you have a manager in place. You have an ally. It's not just you guys on an island, right? You have some trusted creative collaborators and people like Stevie. For any other musicians, there are a wealth of them that are also, going at it independently nowadays. What did you find most challenging about navigating that outside of just, the stress and expectation of releasing a pre-order and saying, hey, it's here, I think, right? There was no label in place necessarily. So it's kind of you guys, setting your own goalposts.
Us against the world. Yeah.
Talk through that for other independent artists and what you felt like worked really well and what maybe didn't or was a little harder than you expected.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a really big team effort, like the album release, like, but we work pretty well in our band. I guess, like, I think to be an independent band and succeed, like, you have to be more than just a musician, and like different people in the band, I can imagine it would be really difficult to succeed as an independent band if you didn't have somebody who's like, we're lucky we've got Craig, who's an amazing producer. I've got a background in like radio and media and music journalism. So like, I know a lot about that side of the industry and like social media marketing and all that stuff. So I think so we're in like a lucky position where we sort of can do a lot of that ourselves. Yeah, I don't know. Like in terms of like the album release, I think I just think like we're also in a really lucky position where we've built up like, like playlist curators on like Spotify and stuff know who we are, because we did build ourselves up through those singles.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine it would have been a lot harder if we didn't already have those relationships established, and we hadn't established them over time, and we hadn't worked our asses off to get our music out there even before we had a team. Like, we were just like, we had like a spreadsheet of just like all these different YouTube channels that do like royalty free like rock music and like animated music videos, and all of these people that we were just badgering to like use our music just to like get it out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I've gotten off topic with
No, that was It was extremely on topic, actually. And I love you mentioned, the backgrounds both with Craig, like in recording and production. Obviously, if someone is listening to this podcast, I have a feeling that they probably have at least dabbled or understand why that would be effective for a band. But what's interesting too is you mentioned, kind of having a background and career in broadcast media, and even social media advertising. Talk a little bit about that, because I think what's also really interesting, and what I think I've seen you guys do really well, and obviously you mentioned pulling in publicists in different territories. And I'd love your thoughts, because the release and rollout portion is much more of a long tail. And I think, I want to kind of deconstruct an album's out, first week sales, like pass or fail. Did it do well? Did it not? Is very much not the case, but it's about you guys. And as you mentioned, setting the stage and building a bit of a band narrative across those 5 years leading up to this record.
And that's what it's all about. I think at the end of the day is just building a story, the story around the band, around the music, and just continuing to build off that. And I guess even just when it comes to pitching media, even stuff if you're for instance, it was difficult for us to get a lot of coverage in the US because we're not touring there. So touring and live shows are part of that story and will help you sort of get press coverage and stuff like that over the line. It's all everything is just interconnected.
What did you try to kind of navigate those hurdles? For example, that's a really common thing, having seen, I know this well with Hopeless and even bands like Tonight Alive, Stand Atlantic, I've the challenges that they go through, and even ones that have labels based in the US, it can still be really hard, very expensive to get overseas, right? That flight from Australia, not only is it long, but it's hellishly expensive.
The US is our number one market on Spotify. Number one market by I think it's times 3 or 4 of our monthly listeners that we have in Australia. And we've never toured there. And we've had offers, and we don't have an agent over there, but it is just the working visas. The working visas are so expensive.
Give people an example, because I think some people might not have, even if their band's having success domestically wherever they're based, might not much like that have even thought about in looking into or trying to set foot or traverse it. But I work with a couple other bands too that have a very similar story, that are not in the US, but have the majority of their listeners and fan base, stateside.
It's such
and
a cock, isn't it?
have the same quandary, right? So how did you navigate getting to them and making sure that the story of this record and of these songs and of the band landed overseas? Not because obviously, and you're much more familiar with Australia being from there, of course, but internationally speaking, there's a lot of other places for your music to go and thrive. So how did you navigate that as an independent band too?
One of the biggest lessons or the biggest pieces of advice that I can give anyone who's in an independent band is just constantly be seeking advice and feedback from people smarter than you, from people who you trust, and other people who've had success, and that you want to just get as much information as you can, never stop learning. And for us, with the US, we engaged a publicist who was really, really cool. I had a Skype with her for an hour. She believed in the band. That's the important thing, is to surround yourself with people who also, if they're going to be a part of your team, you want them to believe in you. You want them to go into battle for you. She was amazing. And she just got exactly what the music was about, got our message, got everything that we were doing, and wanted to run through walls to try and get us as.
That's a really incredible point, and I'm so glad that you said it that way. I think it's a beautiful way to wrap, because I think a band like yours, from what it sounds like, has gained the momentum and had success by working with people that, even from that first promoter from download, are excited about the band and get the band, instead of you again trying to go chase someone and feel like you have to so feverishly try to convince them to buy in. And like I said, and that's why I think you having a broadcast background and understand like music and journalistic background, right? I find that actually this is very common is the bands that start getting this right. I feel like there's always one writer or somebody that like freelance writes for something with it, you know what I mean? Like within them, because it is, and the power of story is what we're doing as songwriters and as a band. And if you can, it's not only that, but then it's the story about the story, you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of this weird inception point that I think it takes.
That you say that, because I always struggle so much when we're doing our press releases for singles. It's like, I'll write this song, and then I struggle so much like writing like a quote about what the song is about. It's like, I've already written it. It's like,
you're like, it's there. Yeah, it's why should I? Well, that is such a great point, right? Because that's the real trick, is figuring out that point and how in releasing it, you can help people understand and reveal a very Onion-esque metaphor here, keep revealing layers of that shit so that people are like, well, I knew I loved the song, but then maybe 2 years later, they're like, what? I never knew that. That's insane, right?
Wait, are we trying to get them on the hook?
Oh, no. We did so good, Tom.
2. Well, I'll call it 1.5.
That's one. That's
have you been sitting on
Emmy,
that?
on behalf of myself, I'm so sorry.
Can you give another sad trombone? I love the first one.
Yeah, I don't honestly. I don't even want to give that to you. Yeah, honestly, that's even
honestly better. That was great. Like, I think we can pull that as the sample. Mm-hmm. It'll be great.
Are we gonna have to pay you royalties on that if we use that in future episodes?
It's fine. I mean, I don't have a label to sue you.
Yeah,
so
right. That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Emmy, this has been what a true treat. We're so thankful that you made time, especially across many, many time zones, to come chat with us about the record.
Oh, yeah. No, great job, guys. We did it.
We did. I love that. And we even get the re-encouragement at the end, Tom. What a great episode this has been, truthfully. But you're welcome back anytime. We'll certainly be keeping up with you guys as things go. We got to get you over here stateside. That much is clear.
You have to come back to Australia and have a better tour than have.
I will, but even ahead of that, believe me, I am working day and night to ensure our return to your lovely, lovely country.
Excellent.
But in the meantime, where can everybody find anything else about RedHook, what you do? I know you have your hands in a lot of stuff, as you mentioned, like radio and otherwise. Tell everybody where they can find you and follow along.
Yeah, sure thing. So RedHook is just at We Are RedHook on literally every social media platform. And I'm just at Emmy RedHook. So come stalk us, say good day, hopefully see you at a show sometime soon.
Amazing.
We love that. Thank you again. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much, guys.
So we mentioned at the beginning of this season that we're going to be talking a lot about how the work ultimately shapes us as artists and creators. And I think so much about Emmy's story really puts this on display. She talked about songwriting as a personal exercise for her that allowed her to confront a lot of her past traumas and ultimately come to terms with them through the writing and performing of those extremely personal lyrics. There's a power that secrets can hold over us, but the act of finding that courage to speak these truths out loud can really work to shape the way you view yourself. It is that visceral response of their audience to that kind of raw honesty that fills an artist up with that confidence necessary to continue winning each inevitable battle with imposter syndrome. And not only that, but the band's dedication to building an audience for their music is what actually led them to start seeking so much feedback and advice from a number of outside sources. It's through that kind of guidance that the band as a whole and each individual member begins to fully realize their strengths and their weaknesses and the opportunities that have yet to be seized upon. But without all the effort that they put into this debut LP, Their desire for learning might never have fully manifested itself. So instead of looking at releases as a pass or fail experiment, maybe think of them as opportunities to challenge yourself and the limiting beliefs that you might have as an artist. So keep pushing yourself, keep surprising yourself, and we'll catch you next time on
The Record Process.